my YouTube friends. Well, I've got a story that somebody sent me that I've printed out that I'm going to read. And forgive me for being sad, but I just buried my other boy of 12 years that was with me, and I'm pretty devastated. My heart is heavy, but I know he's at the Rainbow Bridge with my other boy. So Maxwell and Zeus are together again, the brothers that made my life so complete for 8 and 12 years nearly. But I'm out here at the back of my house, and I thought I'd give you kind of a little, there's the woman cave over there, and from my back porch, and there's one of my rain barrels. I just got some fish that I put in my rain barrels. Can you see them? I'm gonna drop my phone in there. I've got some goldfish in my rain barrels now, and got another rain barrel right there. Some goldfish in that, but out there is where my boys are buried, right there. Right there. And they're resting peacefully. Thank you so much for watching my YouTube video and being my YouTube friends, y'all. I'm gonna do this story now from someone that lives in North Alabama that sent me this, and he and his family have asked for anonymity, and I'm gonna give them that. So I'm gonna, delete some places, names, and some things. And what I'm gonna do actually is I'm just gonna read the emails. He emailed me, and I emailed him back, and he emailed me again, and I emailed him back. So here goes. This came into me in early April. Hi, I saw your Sabe video. I live in Alabama as well, and was wondering what part of the state you had your encounter in. I moved to North Alabama about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I lived in another section of North Alabama. The area is wooded with large hills and small mountains. I had several weird things happen on the property that I am just now starting to understand may have been a group of juvenile squatch passing through the area at that time. Our property had the main house, and about 100 feet away, bordering the woods, I had built a workshop with a small office space in it. I did all my computer work in this space and was often out there late at night. It was behind this building where almost all of the activity took place. We found teepee structures in the woods behind the shop building, and one day my kids told me they saw a monkey in a tree back there in the woods. I didn't know how to process this information at the time. Since then, I have learned from numerous other reports that juveniles and Sasquatch apparently climb trees and hang out there sometimes. The juveniles climb the trees and hang out there while their parents are away hunting, possibly. In retrospect, it makes more sense to me now than it did then that my kids would think it was monkeys. Let me read that again. Sorry about that. In retrospect, it makes more sense to me now than it did then that my kids would think it was monkeys if they had seen this activity. A few months later, my oldest daughter was in the office late at night doing some graphics work on my computer and came in to tell me that she heard someone walking on the roof of the shop. She said she looked out the window at the woods and saw lights where there should be none. Another night, I was out there late. the hair stood up on my neck and arms. All of a sudden, I heard something crawl up under the office space area, where it began bumping around. The next morning, I found the metal on the building bent inwards with hair stuck to it. This metal was about 4 feet off the ground, so that whatever got under there was large. It could have been a bear, I suppose, but looking back, I have to wonder. At this time, I have not physically seen a Squatch, but I have begun to notice teepee structures and other structures in my new area. Anyway, I was just wondering what part of the state you were in and if you had heard any sightings in the blank county area. And it's North Alabama. These things are everywhere, y'all. And then I responded back to him, "Dear sir, thanks for contacting me. I have been in all North Alabama counties north of Birmingham many times, especially when I worked for Alabama Power Company on the Highline transmission construction lines. I currently live in South Alabama in Mobile County, near the Gulf Coast. I have acreage in Shelby County, south of Birmingham, where I had a dogman experience at one point in time. I have had Sabe Sasquatch people experiences in Shelby County near Lay Lake when I worked for the power company, so I know they are in that area also. I have had Sabe Sasquatch people experiences in many places in the USA, in California, in Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Louisiana, Texas, Washington, Nevada, South Carolina, Kentucky, Florida, West Virginia, and Alabama, where I currently live. I actually saw a blonde-colored one eating peanuts from a farm field in Baldwin County, Alabama. I also saw a black-colored one off the side of the Interstate 65 in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. I have not had a full sighting of the ones that are currently visiting my Mobile County home property yet, but I have found 4 different size footprints at different times since October 2021, up to just a couple of weeks ago. This was in early April that I emailed him back. The footprint sizes have been 7 inches, 13 inches, 15 to 16 inches, and 22 inches. I also found a pile of poop that was from a bum hole much bigger than mine or my dog's. It looked just like human poop, but much bigger around in diameter and had a plant matter and berry looking material in it. And y'all, I didn't tell you this earlier, but when I found that pile of poop just right over here beside the woman cave shop, I was walking along through there looking at the footprints that was 22 inches long, and I kicked that pile of poop with my shoe, so that's the reason I didn't get a picture of it. Anyway, my gates stay locked when I am gone, and none of my family or neighbors have a key to my gate or come into my property when I'm not here. I have 2 fenced acres here with 3 sections of wooded areas here, and there are lots of woods behind and around my property. It does sound to me like you have been having Sabe Sasquatch people experiences. Yes, I think they are forest people and not just animals. What color was the hair you found under your office? And how long was the hair? Sabe Sasquatch people are very curious about us humans, especially the juveniles. They would have more of a tendency to sneak up close to us than a bear would. I have seen many black bears in Mobile County, and unless they are rabid or very hungry and hunting for easy food, like your dog in your backyard, etc., they will not hang around where there's the scent of humans. A bear got hit by a car and was killed just a couple of months ago here in West Mobile County. It looked to be about 3 years old, and probably it wasn't at that point, far from being gone from the mama. We do have a lot of woods, out this area. Every time I have come across a bear, they will get away from me as fast as they possibly can. I don't think you're having a bear problem. Also, I have come under the experience that bears will not hang around where there's Sabe Sasquatch people. Be very careful of your daughters and young children. I would not let them wander alone or be unprotected in the woods if you are having Sabe Sasquatch experiences in your area. Female humans have been taken by these cryptid beings for reproductive and mating purposes, so please be careful concerning your wife and your daughters. There still are too many unknowns with these beings, and to be trusting with them. For additional protection, I would recommend motion-activated lights put up around your property. These beings don't like the lights at night and tend to stay away from where these lights are placed. They also don't like infrared cameras and tend to stay away from those areas as well. Now y'all, I gotta tell you this, I've got cameras all around my house, and there are times where my cameras will just buzz out, and that's right over here where I have found some footprints that should have been right on the camera, and the camera would just like glitch and then come back on. And it's happened to this camera over here too. So go figure on that one. Are you proficient with a firearm? I would suggest carrying one on you or having one near if you may need it. I do not suggest shooting one of these creatures unless they are attacking you first. They know what guns are, and they are not stupid beings. If you would like to do an interview with me or have me read your experience online regarding this situation, please let me know. I would not suggest you contact any of the popular commercial companies that do Sasquatch research regarding this, as they have a tendency to exploit you and your personal living space if and when they find out where you live and where these beings are. The next time you think Sabe may be close to you, the feeling of being watched, the hair standing up on your neck or on your body, try communicating with them. If they are crawling underneath your office while you are in there, talk to them. Tell them either verbally or with your mind. Ask them not to make you and your family afraid. They do not understand the word scared from what I have learned from other videos and the How to Hunt and Dave Politis' channels. They understand the word afraid. So if you say, please don't make me afraid, they understand that they, you know. So scared is not one of their words in their vocabulary, obviously. Tell them you mean them no harm and you want no harm to come to you and your family. Quite often they will answer you with either mind speak, telepathic communications, or verbally. If you want to associate with them, let them know to leave. If you do not want to associate with them, I'm trying to read it just as it is. If you want no association with them, let them know to leave you alone, and you will leave them alone as well. These beings are in every state and all around the world. They have become more populated as humans have. We are now starting to cross paths more frequently. I am not an expert, but have an open mind and some experience enough to know what is real with the experiences with these beings that I've had throughout my life. I will not judge you for your experiences with these cryptid beings. Getting the experience off your chest 99.9% of the time helps us more than we realize. If you have a story you'd like me to read, you send it to me at tuckertruckerpatriot@yahoo.com. And then he emailed me back. And this is the email he emailed me back from that email. It's got a lot more information in it. Tucker Trucker Patriot, thank you for your response. It's been difficult to talk about this to anyone in this context. I think it scares my wife. She doesn't like to talk about it and is dismissive about it, and that's normal. Even the people in my circle who I discuss virtually everything with don't want to hear about it and are dismissive of the subject. I think it makes a lot of people uncomfortable to confront this stuff as possible reality. With that said, I am eternally grateful that nothing ever happened to any of my girls regarding these experiences. I recently heard stories of them luring and abducting young females, and it sent shockwaves through me. It tears me up to think that my girls were that close to danger and I was not aware of it at the time. And this happens to a lot of people. Y'all get this word out. Share the videos. Let people know. They need to know. People need to wake up about this subject. The experiences I wrote you about happened several years ago. The property was a 5-acre plot in a semi-wooded area close to Highway 31. There is a heavily wooded and mountainous area between I-65 going up US 31 towards blank. That particular spot is heavily wooded on both sides of 31 for 5 or 6 miles with no houses and is perfect wildlife habitation, or is perfect for wildlife habitats. Highway 31 runs all the way from South Alabama way into North Alabama, and there's a lot, I mean, it's people have built houses all in there and everything, but there's still a lot of wooded areas all through Alabama. The area is very rocky and steep behind the property, so I thought it was highly unlikely that it was people plodding around in the woods behind my house. We no longer live there, and my daughters are now grown. At the time frame this was happening, both of my girls were young, between 9 and 14. My wife never saw anything. She works full-time as a and was just not out in my shop area exploring the woods behind the house much. Both my wife and I have been self-employed for most of our adult life, but I was usually the one at home with the girls. I was at the time and did a lot of home work on the computer. When I had to go to a job site, the girls went with me. They were with me a lot, so they tended to confide in me about the things they saw on the property. As far as the hair goes, for whatever got underneath my office, it was dark brown and it was about 3 inches long. A few tufts of it had caught a screw head right where the metal was bent in, where it crawled under the house, or crawled under the shop. I found it extremely odd when it happened because it was late at night. I was alone, and the sense of fear I felt was highly unusual. I just knew whatever it was very large. The clearance under that end of the office was more than enough for myself or a bear to get into without bumping the floor. I will never forget the hair raised up on my arms, but I never physically saw anything. After that, I put up floodlights and behind the shop. Let me go back. After that, I put up floodlights behind the shop, and nothing like that ever happened again. Later on, I added on to the shop building and extended it out beyond the back of the back of the office. I did have things hit the metal roof a few times, and at that time I just thought it was pine cones or limbs from trees or something like that, and it may have been. The things I can't ignore or dismiss is my daughters seeing monkeys in the woods, and my oldest daughter being scared of something walking on the roof of the office and shop at night while she was doing a school project on my computer. I physically saw all the teepee structures. When they were younger, my girls had made a little fort in the edge of the woods a few yards behind the shop. Basically just some cardboard against a big rock. They came running into the office one afternoon and said somebody had been making tents close to their fort. My girls were younger at this time, probably 12 and 9. This was before they saw the monkeys in the woods. So I went out and looked, and sure enough, there were a number of small, 3 to 5 foot tall, stick teepee structures in the woods. So I went out and looked, and sure enough, there were a number of small, 3 to 5 foot tall, stick teepee structures in the woods. I brushed it off as natural stick fall. Again, this was one of the first things that had happened. I apologize if this stuff is disjointed and out of order. It was after the teepee structures that they saw the monkeys, and we had the other incidents. Something had gotten into my greenhouse one night and tried to catch fish out of the big tanks I have in there. Several had flopped out of the tanks and were dead on the ground. The rest of the fish were terrified and refused to eat that next morning. Whatever did that had to have the ability to open a door and go inside, as I found the door open that morning. The more I learn, the more a lot of the stuff that seems so weird and just got brushed off at the time sounds more and more like Sasquatch activity. Some of the animals in question may be just curious, but apparently, according to other stories I have heard, some are more aggressive. I am thankful we never experienced any openly overt aggressive behavior. We sold that property 4 years ago and moved to blank, about 20 miles north. We have more acres now, partial woods and partial pasture. The new property has a small creek on the back running through the middle of the privet thicket. My oldest daughter, 21 at the time, went exploring out back and reported finding teepee structures in the thicket. She thought it might have been the previous owners because she also found some old clothing and candy wrappers. Again, this was before I had any clue as to what these structures could potentially represent. We do have 2 donkeys and a mule in the pasture that roam that thicket area, and every now and then in the middle of the night they will start making lots of noise. I gotta tell you, my sister raised donkeys and had a mule, and those are the best watch animals you could have, better probably than dogs, and they'll even kill coyotes and wild dogs and things like that. We had an incident where the donkeys got loose early one morning. We found a gate opened on the back side of the barn. The gate can swing both ways to open, but in one direction its movement is limited because it hits the ground from a hill slope. We always open the gate toward the downhill slope so that it swings freely. However, the gate was lifted up and opened in the opposite direction against the hill. This action would require hands. The chain would have to be unwrapped. Strangely, the gate had been lifted up and opened in that direction instead of the direction it opens the easiest. I put a lock on the chain and it has not happened again. Around that time of year, something hit the house very hard one afternoon right about the time it was getting dark. I went out and found a baseball-sized dent in the hardy plank siding. There was nothing there but a rock in the yard, which made no sense at the time. I now believe it was likely that rock thrown with great force from the edge of the pasture to hit the wall. Let me read that again. I now believe it was likely that rock thrown with great force from the edge of the pasture was thrown to hit the wall. My wife had her stepfather make her one of those plywood Sasquatch cutouts a few years ago for her birthday. We thought it was funny at the time and stood it up out in the yard thinking that it would deter prowlers, etc. I took the thing down sometime later after learning that it may actually attract real Sasquatch to our area. Since I removed it, the weird activity seems to have died way down. I haven't heard the donkeys late at night for some time now, with the exception of the occasional coyote incursion. I believe they move around through different areas, but now I'm approaching it in such a way as to try and not give them anything to be interested in so they won't linger or habituate our area. So now I am getting more into an investigative mode. I have no intention of trying to confront these creatures, but I think it's more than obvious something is living among us, and at times even very close to us. I am going to start looking to see if I can find structures in my area, and if so, if there are any patterns to be found. The area to the west and butting up against my farm is mountainous and heavily wooded, sparsely populated, despite being only a few miles from downtown. Most of the property in this area, lots of acreage, in parentheses, belongs to timber companies. That's the way it is around my property in Shelby County. Across the highway from me and back behind me and to the right-hand side of my property where that 1,500-acre hunting camp is, it's all owned by big timber companies. This is a big paper area, and they use the timber at paper mills. If you want to talk about this on your channel, I don't mind. Just keep my name anonymous. I deal with a lot of professional types and don't want any ridicule or, heaven forbid, loss of business because of it. I could sit down one night and put it all in chronological order as well if you would like. I really want to spread the awareness of this stuff to as many people as possible. Thanks for listening. And then I wrote him one more email back, and now I'll read that, and that will be all of this story. Dear sir, congratulations. You are now in the club of no return. Once we are awake to the truth about the Sabe Sasquatch and other cryptid realizations, there is no going back. I'm going to give kudos to the How to Hunt channel and Steve Isdall for that club of no return thing, because that is so true. That's where I got that, was from him. It is my opinion that the people in your inner circle that are uncomfortable talking about or hearing about this realization of cryptids are that way because they are scared and frightened by this reality. Therefore, they prefer to deny the entire subject with fear denial. The more I hear of other people's experiences, the more it brings memories of experiences I have had throughout my lifetime as a child growing up camping with my parents, and how my parents would tell me, "Oh, you have such a wild imagination, honey," when I would tell them things I saw and heard in the woods. I experienced this many times as a child growing up. They raised me to tell the truth. Then they would say to me, when I told them the truth, "Honey, you just got such a wild imagination." Yeah, my parents were in denial. It makes me wonder, now that they're both, crossed over to the other side, whether they really learned the truth or not about all this mess that's really going on here on this planet. My advice to you is to guard your kids and grandkids as they come and go from visiting you. I have learned that the Sabe people have two sets of vocal cords and can vocalize much higher and lower than the human voice and human ears can hear. The low vocalizations are the infrasound that makes the hair stand up on the back of our necks and all over our bodies and makes us experience that fear feeling. It has been proven in the wilds of Africa and other places that when predator animals hunt, they use this infrasound on their prey. This infrasound can lull into a state that makes them not run and be in an almost trance-like stillness. Sabe uses this infrasound. I have learned from other stories of other people on different channels that they would be out in the woods and just suddenly feel so sleepy and tired that they would just lay down and go to sleep in the woods. Upon wakening, their clothes, some of them would be disheveled, or it would be dark and they would have to travel out of the woods at night unprepared for the darkness. They say this tired feeling while in the woods would just suddenly come over them and they would have no clue why they did that, because in normal circumstances they would never lay down and go to sleep in the woods. You experienced this infrasound when one of them crawled under your office space that particular night you told me about. This infrasound could also make you suddenly feel sick to your stomach. It can actually make you vomit. I have experienced this here on my property and other places numerous times. When my common sense realized what was happening, I spoke the phrase, quote, "Please do not make me feel sick and afraid on my own property." And just as suddenly as it came upon me, the bad and sick feelings went away. It took me a couple of times experiencing this to think quick enough to do that, but I did it with success. On my acres here, I have verbalized aloud and telepathically to these Sabe people not to make me and my family afraid on our own property. As crazy as this sounds, it really works, y'all. At least it has for me. If you are a God-fearing and believing person and believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, calling upon His name will also deter these beings. I have also used the quote, "Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, protect us from evil," unquote, while I was up the Escatawpa River in my boat one day in the past and had an experience. I'll be making that video for my channel pretty soon, y'all. That story's going to be a treat for you. I have heard that people have befriended some of these beings and been protected by them. I know they have helped me in my yard here with the very large southern oak limb and the pile of 4 to 6 inch limbs I told about in one of my videos that were piled up for me back in late December. I know of no one, neighbors or family members, that came to my property and did this. What person could break up 4 to 6 inch limbs unless they were a muscle pumper or something, you know? Yeah, these limbs were broken off. They weren't cut with a saw or an axe. So I know they can be benevolent and they can also be malevolent. I guess just like humans. Just like you, I want people to know of all this for their safety and the protection of their families. I will use these correspondences between us to make the video. Of course, I will protect your identity and the exact locations for your protection and anonymity. Whatever you do, do not let these beings rob you of your peace and solace, of your beautiful home place and your property in the woods for you and your family with this and any other situation you may come across. Sincerely, Tucker Trucker Patriot. And that's the story of the email that I got. Thank y'all for being my YouTube friends. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Thank you for sharing. Everyone needs to know about this. It's the people like us that are awake and others who aren't awake quite just yet. These things roam this planet. There's no doubt about it. Y'all hit that like button for me. I'll see you on the next video. God bless.